Hello, everybody, and welcome to what is now Starseed Paranormal. I'm Paul James Caden, and in the new channel, we are going to continue with ITC work, trying to connect and get proof of an afterlife and even a wider spiritual universe. And I might do a little something different with the channel and have some guests on the show that maybe had some paranormal experiences, maybe share some articles and videos about hauntings and UFOs. And every once in a while, just have a little conversation about some things that are peculiar. Um, maybe some of the equipment I use, uh, things of that nature. To start out with today, I wanted to have a little conversation called The World is a Cult. And you may listen to this conversation at first and say, well, what does any of this have to do with the paranormal? And the answer to that question right from the beginning is a lot. So please listen to the end. Uh, don't shut it off. Don't become discouraged or angry. There may be some soft spots in this conversation for some people, but I would implore you to keep listening because this is important. At least I feel that it is. And when it comes to the paranormal, we see a lot of people or hear from a lot of people that see things in the sky, see things in cemeteries, things in their own homes. They've seen cryptids and angels. I mean, you name it. People are always seeing something that doesn't fit the regular narrative of our everyday waking lives. Sometimes we run face to face with the unexplained. But we don't often stop to think, at least not much anymore, about forces, and I'm talking about spiritual forces that may surround us and even influence our lives here on planet Earth. Excuse me. The ancient people, and there's still, religions who believe that today, that, there are certain entities, some of the light, some of the dark, that try to influence us or are drawn to us according to the choices that we make, the thoughts that we think, the actions that we take, and the energy we put out. We've all heard about the aura, the energy field, the bioenergy field that surrounds us all. And some people believe that when we do things that are, kind and loving, helping others, uh, it radiates certain colors. And beings such as, spirit guides and guardian angels and, helpful spirits will be drawn to that and even kind of act on our behalf to guide us on a more peaceful, pleasant path of blessing. But if we do things that are evil, we have mean thoughts, angry thoughts, do acts that are not kind and loving, then we radiate different colors, and we may have entities that come into our lives that bring a host of unpleasant symptoms along with them, making us even more angry, making us act even more base and animalistic, and brutal and cruel to one another. And I've seen cases of this myself where I believe people open themselves up to these lower entities, as we call them, and actually became uh, psychologically, mentally, even physically ill. People that were fine until a certain point in their life where they kind of went over the edge and, really started, doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, things that were not nice. So that brings us to the conversation. Now, I want you to hold all that in mind as we go forward in this. You know, I've tagged this little conversation, this video, "The world is a cult." And this is something that most of us knew not very long ago, just a handful of years ago. But it seems like most of us have forgotten that fact. And, we're following any voice that flags us down from the side of the road. You know, I myself have always interested in meditation and the power of the mind. I actually became interested in these things when I was in the second grade. My brother was 3 grades ahead of me, so he was in the fifth grade, and his teacher actually taught the class how to meditate, and he showed it to me, and I was fascinated. And we grew up with this fascination about the mind, the power of the mind. And later in life, I became interested in metaphysics and became a certified hypnotist slash hypnotherapist. And, I've learned a lot over the years. And I've seen how it was even a section of my class, and I had a pretty lengthy conversation with my teacher, with my mentor, uh, who certified me in as a hypnotherapist, about the way society, uses what we call waking hypnosis to reach a certain number of people with what the message we want them to hear and the message we want them to listen to. When you used to see the old infomercials and they would say, call now, have your credit card ready and call now. That is what is known as, a waking hypnosis suggestion. You're just saying it flat out like a command. Have your credit card ready and call now. And there's a certain amount of people, a certain percentage of people who just by hearing that command, that waking hypnotic suggestion, call now, will actually pick up the phone and call, whether it's against their better judgment or not. Well, I don't have the money right now, but I can put it on the credit card and pay it off a little at a time. I'll call now. I need that. That looks important. I need to have that product. And so it goes with religion, with uh, the commercials, selling products, politics, all across the board. People in this world are using waking hypnosis and cult techniques, techniques that are actually used in cults to indoctrinate the mind of the individual. One of the things I did as a study years ago was I got all the books by Jehovah's Witnesses, which are, kind of a Christian cult. And I read all of their books, and I noticed through all of them, older books, newer books, and their little magazines, certain phrases were repeated on every page or every other page. And that is a form of waking hypnosis through the written word. So even in politics, if I'm a politician and I get up there and I have a certain following and I'm gaining popularity, and all I have to do is use, and you'll notice politicians use very vague vocabulary a lot of the time. They'll just say things like, America is broken and we need to fix it. We need health care that's going to work for everybody. I don't need to explain what that plan is. I don't even need to explain how I'm going to fix America. All I need to keep saying is this country is broken and we need to fix it. And I may decorate that with other vague statements now and then. Look how people treat one another. Look at this group of people oppressing that group of people. Look what they're doing to our culture. This country is broken and we need to fix it. Eventually, by repeating that over and over again, that message will reach a certain number of people, and they'll repeat it to others who will repeat it to others. And this is how my following grows. It's like, it's like recruiting people into a cult. So by using waking hypnosis techniques and techniques used by cults, this it's pretty much everybody around you is trying to recruit you to something. Whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's Apple versus Android with electronic devices, whether it's following certain trends. Is it Nike versus Adidas, or whatever the case may be? you know Men against women, black against white, this religion against that religion. you know we're always being indoctrinated. And the thing now is, we got this whole thing. I noticed it just blew up overnight. Are you going to watch the halftime show, during the Super Bowl this year with, Bad Doggy or whatever his name is? Or are you going to watch this other real American show put on by so and so, and everybody's all rah rah around it, and everybody's, taking sides on that, and they're getting ready to, start verbal and physical confrontations with one another over it. This is cult mentality, you know, separating the people, dividing the people, getting them all in little individual cults, because people are more easy to control when they are not united. So, all these little cults are on purpose. How many little groups and subgroups can we get them into? Because it's easier. It's easier to control them. It's easier to take control when people aren't united. And just look at some of the things that are happening in this country right now. And no one is united on anything, because they've broken people down to so many different little groups and subgroups. Society, civilization has become weakened. And this may be something that may offend some people right off the bat, but again, I implore you to listen, and listen to the whole thing I'm about to say here. As I've noticed how they've taken the death of Charlie Kirk to prop this individual up as almost a golden calf that everybody's rallying around, at least certain groups of people. And then there are those who oppose that group of people. So again, there are groups within groups and subgroups and split off groups, politics and this one and that one and spiritual and Charlie Kirk. It's a mess, and I'm not saying Charlie Kirk was bad. I mean, what happened there was absolutely disgusting. And I think anybody who hides in the shadows with a gun and kills another individual, they don't even know you're there, they don't have a chance to defend themselves, I think that's cowardly. I think that's wrong. I wouldn't even say the words in a video what I think of that kind of individual. Um, I don't really know much about Charlie Kirk. What I do know, yes, I do disagree with some of his religious and political ideologies. But do I hate him? No. Do I think he deserved to die? Absolutely not. This was just another symptom of the culture that we live in, where we think violence and killing one another is the answer. And that is a very big symptom of the cult mentality, because it takes us back to a tribal mentality, and tribes war against one another. if we can kill that tribe, if we can get rid of that tribe, if we can take their property, if we can get rid of their influence in the land, we'll be better off. And look what's happening in America. Look what's happening across the world. And we knew this. We knew this years ago, but yet here we are joining the cult or joining the cults or one of the subdivisions thereof. And what do we think kind of entities will be drawing into our lives, into our countries, into our political arena, when this is the kind of thing that we really think matters? You know, we're all going to be divided and think we're more spiritual based on what concert we watched during the Super Bowl. I mean, you know, they really have us in a place where many of us have checked our minds at the door. We're not even thinking anymore. We only act, react, and get offended if someone has a different opinion. And that is dangerous. So, what's the bottom line here? Again, what kind of entities, you know, are we drawing into our lives, into our families, into our churches, into our country by acting this way, by thinking this way? Our thoughts and our words do affect our reality. Think of quantum physics. You know, there's no universe without an observer. How are you observing it? Through hate or through love? Through light or through darkness? You know, there's many people right now vying for your mind. They all want a piece of your mind. They want to do the thinking for you. They want to tell you what's right, what's wrong, who's bad, who's good, who deserves to die, who deserves to be thrown in concentration camps, who needs to be deported, exported, murdered, taken off the streets. And we're just going along with it. We're not thinking. And we need to get back to thinking for ourselves. We need to take our minds back. We need to step back from all this and find our connection with the divine within ourselves. We need to start communing with the divine source. We need to start communing with the angels. We need to start communing with the light. And it's not hard. People think they can't do it without religion or some man up at a podium screaming out the name of Jesus at them, or, you know, yelling out some sermon that is usually laced with the cultic rhetoric of the day, political or otherwise. We don't need that. We just need to step back and start communing and come from the place of divine love. And that's how we correct our course. That's how we correct our lives. You know, if I'm going to hate my neighbor based on his or her skin color, I need to step back and say, is that really in line with the values and the way of divine peace and divine love? The answer is going to be no. If I'm thinking of going out and hurting somebody or hating somebody or killing somebody because they have a different religion or political ideology than I have, I need to stop right away and ask myself, does this resonate or line up with the divine law of love? No, I need to stop. It's very hard to get those base emotions and thoughts under control, but the steps are actually very easy. We just need that foundation of love and always asking ourselves, does this come from a place of divine love? If God were here on earth and God is not a man, don't be fooled into thinking God is a man up in the heavens sitting on a throne with a crown on his head, and he hates you who you hate, and you know he loves who you love, and you know he's so invested in our politics and our football games and who's going to win, and you know who's you know these are human inventions. these are human constructs. God is not up there telling you who to vote for, who to hate, promoting genocide, promoting violence. These are ideas of God, man making God in his own image, not the other way around. We need to get back to the foundation of divine love. We need to take our minds back, because there's too many people playing for your mind, making a play for your mind, trying to control your mind. And they're succeeding. Right now they are succeeding. And we need to stop. We need to pull out. We need to center. We need to meditate. We need to breathe. And we need to start asking ourselves that question with everything we do, everything we hear. A politician comes along and starts spewing rhetoric of hatred and making fun of the way other people look and villainizing people, making up, just these atrocious stories. We need to ask ourselves, is what he or she's saying, does that resonate and come from a place of divine love? And if it doesn't, we should turn away from that politician, no matter who it is. And that's the only way we're going to get leadership in this country and any other country that's going to come from a place of divine love, that's going to come from a place where the politician, the government works for everybody, not just those who belong to their party. And that goes for religion, that goes for Apple versus Android. It's across the board. We need to start taking our minds back, because we're in a dangerous place spiritually, morally, personally, politically. And then again, we need to think of the paranormal ramifications of that. What kind of energies, what kind of entities are we bringing into our lives and our country and our our culture? We could be saturated, with these negative forces, like a pandemic, and it will spread that way. The more minds that are polluted, the more entry they have. But when we start coming from that place of divine love, it acts kind of like a force that just, like rushing water, it just washes them away. We recognize it for what it is, and it all starts to just fall away. They start to just leave our sphere of influence, and everything self corrects. So don't be a part of the cult of the world. Back up away from all of that stuff. Start thinking for yourself. Stop letting religion, these organized religions, stop letting them think for you. Stop letting them tell you who and what's evil all the time, demonizing everything. And now falling into the political trap, many of these churches, demonizing people that have a different political view than they have. This is wrong. This is cult mentality. And they know that, because most people, unfortunately, are more apt to be followers than leaders. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for a leader, someone to tell them what to do, tell them what to believe, tell them what is the right way to go. And if they get in a place where they feel accepted politically, spiritually, at church, whatever the case may be, and there's people patting them on the back, welcome brother, welcome sister, we love you, you're in the right place, God brought you here, that does something to our mind. Right away, I feel like I belong here. I found my tribe. I found my home. Mission accomplished. That's the first step of walking through the doorway of the cult mentality. Not always. We're all looking for our tribe and the place where we belong and like-minded others. But when you have these groups that want to reel you in that way. And the rhetoric is bittersweet, and most times more bitter than it is sweet. We need to back away from that. We need to recognize the catchphrases of the day that everybody's using, and we start hearing that so much, or our churches or whoever promoting, well, what halftime show are you going to watch? Are you a patriot or are you not? You need to get the hell away from that, period. Cult mentality. And they will guilt trip you into it. They will force you into it. They will keep hammering on you until the message gets so deep in your subconscious mind, you start believing it yourself. And then they've succeeded in taking your right as a sovereign spiritual being to think for yourself. So that's my little rant here. Not even really a rant, just something I felt I wanted to talk about, because we need to get back to thinking for ourselves. We need to be aware of what kind of energies we're drawing into our lives. Have you ever thought, speaking of the paranormal, have you ever stopped to think why so many people in today's day and age are having more negative encounters with the paranormal? It very well could be because of the way we're acting, the way we're living, and the way we're thinking in this cult mentality. So if you listen to this, I thank you for listening. I will be back soon. I'm going out tonight. I got a new radio I want to try with shortwave channels. It's a bigger radio with a richer sound, so I'm looking forward to using that hopefully in one of the cemeteries tonight. But like I said, I want to do something a little different with this channel when it comes to the paranormal and the spiritual and seeking that truth on the earth to the stars. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next upload.